Welcome to TSK F1. My name's Rich, and this is your daily dose of Formula One news. Today, we're going to be talking about James Allison and Mercedes. There's rumblings coming out of Red Bull about different things to do with their team and copycats and things like this, so we'll look at some of that. And also, talk is cheap, Ferrari. A little bit of a sort of a discussion going on with the boss of Formula One. But please do make sure you're hitting that like button on the stream. You may have to close the chat to do so, and get involved in the chat. Hit subscribe down below. But yeah, most of all, get involved in the chat. Share your opinions. Let's make this conversation. That's the best thing we can do with these streams. It's absolutely fantastic when that happens. So first of all, we're going to talk about this chap, James Allison. Now, look, I said yesterday I wasn't planning on talking about this because it's just rumours. But, excuse me. But I've looked into bits and bobs with this and what it's about, and the details appear to be scarce. So I thought I would just bring you what's out there and what appears to be reputable, if you can call it that. But all we have really is a rumor that's saying Mercedes are reportedly going to call upon James Allison to take the lead on next year's car. So those of you who were hoping for James Allison to come back in and take over development of this year's car, everything I've read says that isn't a thing, that they're just looking to re-engage him to get him in for next season and the ongoing direction of the car. Now, James Allison, super experienced, very experienced guy, mastermind of, some superb Mercedes cars. Also spent time at Ferrari. I believe he was at Ferrari at the same time as Fernando Alonso, when you remember maybe Fernando Alonso being so close to, I think it was a couple of titles with Ferrari. I believe they were James Allison cars. Very knowledgeable, very intelligent, and seems a very nice guy. You get some of these people who seem awkward sort of thing in front of camera and stuff. He always seems very, I think the term's personable, isn't it? And I would only see that as a good thing for Mercedes if they were to bring him back into the team. But nothing is confirmed. And like I say, this is all rumour that everyone has jumped on. And it's only come from the Italian version of motorsport.com. And the only thing that Toto Wolff has said is we don't have a mechanical problem. Otherwise, Aston Martin would suffer too. The point is that we go well on a straight, but we lose a lot of time in fast corners. Now, I'll start a poll, and you guys can get involved in it. Do you think James Allison will come back? And this is a genuine thing. Like, not do you want him to come back? Do you think he'll actually come back? So it's a different thing. That is a different thing, because I feel like Mercedes fans will be like, yes, but like that, like wanting him to come back is a different thing to, him actually deciding to and things like that, isn't it? Now, I've like I say, I've stayed away from this because it seems to be one throwaway report in one article on one source, and everyone's jumped on it because of the Mercedes apparent problems. Now, whether you think it's a good thing or not, I think it is, and I think it'd be a positive thing for Mercedes. But there's not much more to say. I could do a deep dive video on who he is and what he's about and his history and stuff. But really, like I said yesterday when people were talking about it, there is no story here. There is no story here. That's why I don't really like jumping on such things, because there's nothing. And people saying, is it true, and things yesterday, there's no story, I'm going to be honest and say I don't know enough about him. Still relatively new to the sport in terms of knowing all the details. He's basically the guy that you would. I think he was with Mercedes from. I want to say in his role he was from 2017 to 2021, but I could be wrong. Also Ferrari, and he's one of the guys. If you don't have like Adrian Newey about, you want James Allison about. He's like up there. He's up there, and you know he can be the kind of guy. My issue is I don't know enough about Mike Elliott, who's in his position now. But look, motorsport is ruthless. Business is ruthless. If they have to get rid of Mike Elliott to bring James Allison back, and that's what they need, then so be it, I suppose. I guess that's what they've got to do. But yeah, exceptional person in a lot of ways. He did a Beyond the Grid podcast, I believe, a few years ago, and it's well worth a listen. Well worth a listen. Very nice guy. But that's all I have to say on it, really, guys. I'd like to bring you more, but again, this is kind of why I avoided it yesterday. People asking questions and looking for answers about things that just don't exist and aren't a thing. As soon as it's a story, as soon as it's a thing, and I know about it, I'll bring it to you. But that is all it is right now. Next up, Christian Horner. Now, look, I've been pretty vocal, and comments told me to calm down about it. Look, what is sport and what is fandom if you don't get passionate about your sport, right? And he's been asked about cars and similar cars and copycats and things like this. And he said, I think the operating windows of these cars are very narrow, and every team in the top three looks like it's developed its own theme, he told the media. And one team has adopted our theme, and it made a gain. So I guess at some point it's going to converge, and you know that can happen during a season. Now, look, I don't understand this. I still don't understand this whole narrative. I don't understand this whole narrative, right? And you know what? I feel like I'm going to do something live here. Because I just want to prove a point with this whole thing, really, with copying our things and copycats, and it just being a bit much for me. In F1, literally forever, when you've seen the quick car, you've done it, right? And I've got a really good example that I can show you, because I looked up loads of examples the other day, and I can, if I can find it really, really quick, I will do, and just quickly Photoshop something together for you. But it's not unusual for other teams. Like, it would be stupid of other teams to look at other cars and go, oh, I'm not going to copy that. It's fast. You know, it's silly, isn't it? But he is talking about convergence at least, right? But let me just get you. This is super quick and nasty, but let me just get you this little comparison here, really, really quick. Oh, that won't work. This might. There's no quick way to do this, really, other than what I'm doing. But I should have had this prepared, but it's just, you know, I kind of just want to prove a point here, right? That export, save, and then, yeah. Let's do this then. Nasty broadcasting. Good win. Let's have a look, though. Right. Right, there you go. I just have to resize it somewhat. Hello, James. There you go. They are the Williams and the Ferrari from 2002. They are the Williams and the Ferrari from 2002. The nose, nearly exactly the same. The barge boards are nearly exactly the same on different angles. There's a little bit of a curvature on the top of the side pod, I suppose, in the Ferrari. The roll hoop is basically the same. The flicks above the rear wing, above the rear, in front of the rear tires, are basically exactly the same. Like, it's not a new thing, and that just took me how long to find. Here's a random 2 Formula One cars from 21 years ago, looking exactly the same, because Ferrari were the fastest and everyone went, we need to make our car like a Ferrari. And I'm getting really bored of the whole copycat nonsense, because it is just an absolute myth for them to be going on about it. But anyway, if there's a design that's going to work, teams are going to adjust. Exactly. Now, look, this was interesting. Though, he was asked if they could converge their designs within the life cycle of the current regulations. And he said it can converge in 2 weeks. So let's see a few more circuits, a few more surfaces, and the tyres, how they work at different venues. I think things can change very, very quickly. So, yeah, we'll see, won't we, with what happens with the cars. But I can't help but be very it just triggers me. The whole, the whole narrative. It just creates a division, doesn't it? It creates a nonsensical narrative that just isn't a thing, as I've just evidenced in about, 45 seconds, by putting 2 pictures of F1 cars from 20 years ago next to each other. And at the time, I was watching Formula One, and nobody was screaming the BMW, Williams, they're copying Ferrari. And no one was doing that, because that's Formula One. But anyway, I don't really want to go on about this subject anymore, but what I try and do, right, I've spoken about Mercedes, and then I try and speak about Red Bull a bit, but it's normally nonsense that's the news that comes out about Red Bull. Like, if it's Helmut Marko speaking or whatever, and I'm not saying Red Bull are nonsense, I'm just saying the news that comes out about Red Bull tends to be nonsense. I try and balance that, and then I try and bring some other news as well, because I don't want it to become the Red Bull show, the Mercedes show, or whatever. I want it to be all the news, but not much. But not much comes out of Red Bull, honestly. My stepson came to me saying he was disappointed that the Aston was a copy of the Red Bull, and I had to explain to him how F1 works. And not get his news from Facebook. Do you know what? I was sent something, and I'm going to try and get it up on the screen for you. Oh, where is it in the chat? There was a really good, really good. What? Right, there's a really good Instagram. I don't know. Can you bring up Instagram on PC? I don't know. Instagram. Right, this is worth the wait. Right. I was sent this. Oh, come on, please work. This is the one, I think. Wait, give me a minute. Right then. Yes. Right. I'll show you this. I'll show you this, hopefully. Right then. Right. We have some pictures here of... Right. This is... Can you see that? Right. That is the back of the Aston Martin and the Red Bull. Now, look. If you have a pair of eyes or a singular eye, or even if you are impaired some way with your sight, you should be able to see that arrangement is rather different. The diffuser is completely different. The rear flicks on the rear wing are totally different. Can you? The rear wing is very different. Can you understand why? Look, the exit from the engine cover is flat there from the Red Bull. That's all curved and wavy. Like, can you understand? Can you understand why I'm getting really bored of this? I'm like, every day there's a new news article and everyone all over it. Now, try and picture this. I haven't made a comparison. Maybe I'll make a video on this later. I haven't done a comparison, but right, just look at this and try in your mind's eye to remember, maybe not the engine cover bit, but this bit, right? There's the Mercedes, right? And I'm going to flick between this Mercedes, but it's mainly under the main element of the rear wing and the diffuser, all this area. Can you see my mouse? Yeah. All this area, yeah? And then we'll go back and look at the bottom picture when I go back. 3, 2, 1. Oh, look. It's a Mercedes. It's a Mercedes. Like, it... You know how the actual news is saying Aston Martin is like 30% Mercedes and actually is? There you go. Nothing on the grid looks like that Red Bull. Honestly. There you go. There you go. There you go. I couldn't help it. I had to show this just now because thanks to John for sending me this, because it's really, really good. Now look, I mean, I don't know anything, but they look really elegant. That looks like a really elegant solution, allowing lots of hot air to come out and under the rear wing because it flies up and creates pressure and all sorts of stuff. It does look very elegant, the back of that Red Bull, but I don't know. One thing I did notice about the Red Bull is the diffuser's very curved here, whereas others are very angular to maximize the air. But I mean, look, it's very, very clear, isn't it? It is very, very clear. I wouldn't read too much into the actual rear wing. I think this is from testing, but it shows, doesn't it? It does show, like, it's extremely clear where Aston Martin is getting its sort of detail from. The diffuser, these elements here, and actually the engine cover isn't a million miles away, is it? Let's be real about it. And yet Red Bull is still going on, but people are running with it. People are running with it, and I cannot fathom why. Because I even had it suggested in one of my videos, it's more than the side pods. Okay, so the side pods and the entire rear of the car are different. What have they done the same? It's honestly nonsense. One interesting thing here, I've tried to zoom into it. They're pointing at something on the Alpine, but I don't know what. I actually don't know what. But look at them, those areas there. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. But I think my point is well and truly proven. And if I get any more comments going, but it's the same, bro. Oh, mate. Just use your eyes. But there you go. There you go. Horner on about copycats. Me, scumbag, tiny YouTuber, can prove that Christian Horner is talking what I would like to call absolute rubbish. Now, what is the next thing I'm talking about? Oh, God. Why am I even talking about him? What's he said? I've forgotten about this. What's he said? I actually have forgotten what he said. I forgot I was even going to talk about him. But Helmut Marko, he's there. Why did I put him in? Was it just so he was in? Oh, okay. I totally forgot. Oh, God. This is a streamlined, well-produced show in a morning. So Toto Wolff has basically said Red Bull could win every Grand Prix this season going off the first race. And he has said it's nonsense, total nonsense. You can't say that after one race. You only have to make one mistake with the setup, as happened to us in Brazil last year. And when questioned about that they could look after the tyres very, very well, he said maybe he's not wrong about that. He smiled. I also haven't seen a drop of sweat on Max. And that was basically it that I was adding Helmut Marko in for. This is kind of what I mean. There isn't really any news out of Red Bull. I want to try and balance it, but there isn't really any news other than Helmut Marko hasn't seen Max Verstappen sweat. Sorry, Red Bull fans. That is your lot this morning. Stefano Domenicali. Now, I was interested, and I do get interested in how much Stefano Domenicali involves himself with sort of teams and openly saying things about teams, because he is the CEO of F1. And I suppose back in the day, Bernie Ecclestone meddled a lot more, but in these days, I do find it a little bit jarring, because you know, in the days of sort of political correctness and things like this, I don't know, him involving himself and making comments about other teams, especially teams like Ferrari that he used to be the boss of, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a good thing. It always just surprises me, though. And he has basically been saying that for Ferrari, it's not enough for them to say, we are Ferrari. Now, I have watched a few episodes of the new Drive to Survive, and I've almost immediately stopped, which tells its own story. But many, many times, Ferrari boss at the time, Binotto, was saying, we are Ferrari, winning is what we do. And Stefano Domenicali is basically saying, that's not enough. Like, saying that isn't enough. You have to go and do it. And he does believe that they have the right ingredients there. He says that they have all the elements to be confident, but saying we are Ferrari is no longer enough. We need to work on the weak points in order to grow without becoming typically Italian and emotional. Only with determination can you get out of difficult situations. And this is a thing, right? Way back in the day, and this is way back in the day, the Ferrari revolution, as you might want to call it, with Michael Schumacher, was in large part due to Ferrari opening their doors to foreign employees, right? So Ferrari are famously and almost fiercely Italian, and this isn't me knocking them. These are facts, and they internally recruit, and they recruit Italians, and it's a good thing. But where it's okay to admit sometimes that a German engineer or a British aerodynamicist or a French tactician might be better than the Italians you've got. And on a side note, Honda and Toyota have been guilty of the same thing with Japanese employees as well. Toyota especially guilty, from what I've read, that they were hell-bent on making it a very Japanese effort with Toyota, mainly. But he's basically saying what was said 20-odd years ago when Ross Brawn, Jean Todt, and many others, Rory Byrne, quite a few others, went to Ferrari and sort of just changed what it was to be Ferrari, and they dropped this sort of they didn't drop the patriotism, but they opened themselves up to the idea of, you know, people from other nations might have good ideas too. And I know it sounds weird. Oh, well, it sounds weird to me. It sounds weird that wouldn't be your first thought. But we all know what happened with Schumacher. And before Schumacher, they'd not won, what was it, for 20 years? They'd not won a race or something, Ferrari? It was a long time they'd not won a race for. It was crazy. And it clearly had an effect. Could you explain why Binotto lost his job, but chief strategist Inaki Reuida kept his job? No, because I don't work for Ferrari. I'm really sorry, Kian. I can't explain that. I'm not a boss at Ferrari. I've got no idea. Sorry. I'd like to be able to explain, but I don't have contacts in the upper echelons of Ferrari management, so I can't. Sorry, mate. I heard that the chief strategist had been fired the other week, a few weeks ago, but I haven't looked that up, honestly. So, yeah, that's basically, weirdly, what Stefano Domenicali is saying, that they can't just stick to their guns. It's clear that when we talk about Ferrari in Italy, we're talking about the national team that everyone supports and everyone has to support, but the competition is very strong. And I have to agree. They've got to move forward. Talking about Charles Leclerc, he says, Charles knows that these are important and decisive years for him. He has to expect the team to put the best possible car at his disposal. But at the same time, he cannot afford any kind of mistake. Otherwise, the problem becomes bigger. This is a very important phase for Charles' future. He must be very pragmatic because winning with Ferrari is something extraordinary and other teams at the moment cannot give him the chance to fight for victory. Right now, Leclerc has to work on as a driving force within the team, which is certainly going to be a difficult period. And we've spoken about this before. Where could Charles Leclerc go? You know, he doesn't really have options, does he? Max is going nowhere, and George Russell's going to be number one at Mercedes. And then Aston Martin at the minute have got Fernando Alonso. You know, maybe there's an Audi or something, but we're on about Lando for that seat. So who knows? Now, I ran a poll earlier on. Do you think James Allison will come back? We'll end the poll there. And 52% of you think, yes, he will come back. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a very close vote. I'm not sure. I think he could. But I'm really not sure. Hopefully we see in the coming weeks we get some news. But again, from what I'm seeing of the rumours, this is about next season's car, not to fix this season's car. So it'll be even more interesting to see if that's the case. But thank you so much for watching. If you are new here, guys, please do make sure you subscribe down below and hit that like button on the stream. I'll be live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. with your latest F1 news, and also there might be some extra content coming out as well throughout the day. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye-bye.